Good evening and welcome to another fabulous DNA Company webinar. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Dr. Stephanie Nielsen. I am a clinical pharmacist. I am a board certified clinical nutritionist and a certified genomic practitioner. What does that mean? It means I have fun playing in your DNA, helping you get well. And so I'm so excited to have you here tonight. And I'm so excited to have one of our famous coaches, certified functional genomic practitioner, Justin Harris. Justin is amazing. And I think what you'll get out of tonight is some real practical tips you can take away to manage liver health. You may not realize how important liver health is, or you may say, I absolutely know how important liver health is, but I'm not getting guidance about how to take care of my liver. And so, what we hope to answer tonight is kind of do I or don't I? Do I liver cleanse? Don't I liver cleanse? What does my DNA say about my ability to cleanse? And what do I need to look for? So, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Justin, how are you?
I'm good. Happy New Year. This is our first one together this year, and I'm hoping
It
there will
is.
be quite a few more. What an important topic. I think this is on the tips of everyone's tongue, right? Talking about detox problems, detox strategies. It's really amazing how the body prioritizes detoxification. Like there's multiple different organs and pathways that are in place to do this job. Like there's the lungs, right? They exchange bad gas, which is carbon dioxide, for good gas, which is oxygen. That's a detox process. There's the lymphatic system, which helps to kind of keep the blood clean. There's the glymphatic system, which is there to keep the brain clean. The autophagy pathways, right, for cellular death. The kidneys, they're there to collect and excrete toxins. There's the colon for elimination, and even the skin eliminates toxins. When it comes to the liver, I mean, I think that's a really critical organ for not just detox, but all manner of metabolic chemistry, right? Like if your liver becomes overwhelmed, it can impact your blood sugar, your hormone metabolism, bile production, cholesterol production, protein metabolism. I mean, there's so many things going on in this little complicated organ, and it can get gummed up with toxins pretty easily if you don't have good genes or if you don't have good lifestyle behaviors. I think that genetic potential coupled with lifestyle behaviors is really what kind of lives us into these circumstances. And as you and I like to talk about, well, now we got to figure out strategies to go ahead and live ourselves right back out of that circumstance.
Yeah, and I love what you said about respiration and urination. I actually call these the Asian nation. We have respiration, perspiration, defecation. Now we're going to get in a little later some of these detox pathways, methylation, glucuronidation, oxidation. So all these Asian nation you have got to be utilizing, and if you're missing one, you're missing out. So let's get started and let's talk a little bit about, let's look at our poll and see who we've got so we can really tailor to those needs tonight. Can we have all of our special little DNA helpers? There we go. All right. Have you ever tried a liver cleanse? 56% says yes, 24 no, and 21 says, yeah, I'm considering it. Okay. So we do like to do interactive webinars. Of those of you that did a liver cleanse, I'm going to have you put in the chat. The chat's the little bubble at the bottom of the window. We're going to have question and answers that you'll put in the Q&A. But right now we're going to go in the chat. How many of you felt a difference? Put a 1 if you felt a difference after your liver cleanse or during your liver cleanse. And if you've tried a liver cleanse but you didn't, put a 2 because I want to see. So I'm seeing a bunch of 1s. Oh, and now I'm seeing a bunch of 2s. So you know what? 1.5. That's funny. A little bit, but not as much as I wanted to. Okay, but I'm seeing almost as many 2s as 1, which means you guys are genetically different and some of those pathways are broken down. So Justin, we're going to have to come back and tell those 2s other pathways they may want to look at. That's good, guys. Great feedback. Thank you. Number 2, how do you usually feel when a detox or a cleanse happens? 25%, I have more energy. 36% mixed, some good, some bad. 7% worse, or 32%, I've never done it. Justin, have you ever done much cleansing?
Not really. I kind of rely on like baseline lifestyle behaviors that kind of give me a little bit of it each day, as opposed to attempting something on the extreme end, like just dietary antioxidant intake and trying to remove the actual stressors themselves. I kind of rely on that as my baseline activity every day because that way I don't have to go so far as doing like a shotgun approach. And I
Mhm.
find that works pretty good. But bear in mind, I understand my genes as well, right? The areas that are
Right.
suboptimal on my genes, I know where to reinforce and place those interventions that are a little bit more constant and steady. And the rest of it is really just understanding your environment, right? The intake of these toxins in the first place is a great starting point. But I've never done some crazy, I've never even done a coffee enema, full disclosure. So nothing too wild on my end.
Well, with the mixed and with the worst being over 40%, I'm going to actually say that's pretty typical. A lot of times they have die-off reactions, or we have what's called a Herxheimer reaction. And that means we've gone a little too fast, a little too far, and we have some of the negative. Now, the negative shows that, hey, there's stuff in here to get out, but we need to back off and be a little gentler. And I think that's one of the things you'll find out tonight. Just like Sherry just said to Justin, excellent answer, doing a little bit every day. We want to give you some of those thoughts that it doesn't have to be a once a year massive cleanse for 7 or 10 days and you're laying in bed feeling like you're going to puke the whole time. It doesn't have to be that way. There are very gentle ways to do this on an ongoing basis and make it part of your lifestyle. And when you do that, things are much easier. I love it for those of you who said yes, the 25%, I had great more energy. A lot of people have more energy at the end because they've opened those detox pathways. And Justin, we were talking about it earlier. So many people want to add things to their diet or lifestyle. But one of the most effective things, as you were talking about, was let's figure out what we got to get rid of.
Absolutely. I say all the time that health coaching is oftentimes a process of deletion before it's a process of addition, right?
Mm.
Like people will come to you when you're a practitioner and say, I want to add this. I want to add in the coffee enema element or something like that. And I'm finding more and more what I'm doing is I'm kind of auditing their environment first, right? I'm finding the things as far as like, you know, uh, body care products or toothpaste or just things that they're using to clean their household or whatever that have toxins in there. I would rather remove the offending agent first before I go adding in all kinds of things to reinforce these pathways because they're being disrupted by things that you're in contact with all day every day. So why don't we start there? The process of deletion and then the process of addition is going to work 10 times better. So that's how I do it in my health coaching.
Absolutely. So, what's your main reason for joining today? To learn about liver cleansing, 19%. To understand how detox pathways work, 25%. Those two could kind of go together. So, we've got about 45%. To learn how genetics affect detox, 40% almost. You're going to love that. General curiosity, you're going to prevent yourself from having a lot of problems in the future just because I hope you're going to take away a lot tonight with not realizing perhaps how important the liver is to us on an everyday basis. So, which symptoms do you associate with detox reactions? 22% headaches, 33% fatigue, yes and yes, 7% bloating, 10% clear skin, or in the other case of not clear skin, maybe developing, skin issues. Or I don't really know what a detox reaction is. Justin, what kind of detox reactions do you see people have?
All of the above, honestly. It's really dependent on where that's coming from. So, like a lot of people, let's say, have issues with gut skin axis, right? The skin is a detox organ, like I mentioned. So, sometimes for people, it will show up there. It can be really hard to identify because the actual symptom is oftentimes pretty far downstream from the upstream imbalance, right? So, you can have problems detoxifying at the level of the liver, and then the liver can cause all kinds of hormonal issues, and you end up with more toxic metabolites circulating and things like that. So it's like it's all of the above, right? People just show up feeling like crap, and they're like, my I have brain fog, and my head hurts, and my joints hurt, and my skin is going to crap. And that's where they need to find tailored strategies. Because again, if I were to just take that and go, it appears you have a detox problem. Let's put you on a 5-day water fast or something like that. it's kind of irresponsible for me as a practitioner to do that, as opposed to identifying the arsonist, right? Finding where the detox and the inflammation problem is actually coming from, and then adding my strategies with that knowledge.
Yep. Well, and our final question is, what do you think impacts detox ability the most? 20% said diet. I love that. Supplements, 4%. They can help or they can detract. Genetics, 32%. That's why we love you guys, because you're in the right place at the right time. Stress and sleep, that definitely throws detox out, or 30% not sure. And I love that curiosity to go, I don't really know. I hear a lot about detoxing. People talk about detoxing, but it's kind of this whole nebulous world out there. So we're going to dive into a little bit more about detoxing and about liver detoxing. So one of the things for you to know is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. If you've ever heard of that, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is the #1 liver disease in North America right now. Yeah, and most of you have heard about it, but I'm wondering if you really know what it means. See, back before the 80s, we didn't have fatty liver disease, and alcohol became the major contributor to high blood sugars and high insulin levels. And insulin is generally not measured, but in this case, what happens is that alcohol spikes the insulin, it goes into storage mode, and the first place it packs it away is the liver. So I want you to think about this. Let's think about beer bellies. Many of you have either have a beer belly, know somebody who has a beer belly, or got rid of a beer belly. Why are beer bellies a thing? Because the glycemic index of beer, if a piece of white Wonder Bread is 100, beer is 110. So it spikes your insulin. Insulin is a storage hormone. It packs it away, and primarily it puts it around your belly. Well, what's happening to your liver in this case? The liver's going, Coach, I need help. I need to pack some more away. So it gets packed around your waist, but it gets packed in your liver, inside of your liver. Imagine like tucking in all the corners. But it can also get packed in your kidneys. It can also put fat all the way around your heart. This is where we get visceral fat, which can be dangerous fat. So non-alcoholic fatty liver disease took off after the 80s, because in the 80s, we got an influx of all sorts of hidden sugars in our ultra processed foods. So I want you to now realize that the US Agriculture and the FDA now have 200 different names for sugar. Now you may know sucrose, glucose, or something along that line, but did you know maltodextrin is a sugar? Did you know that agave nectar is a sugar? Did you know that even, monk fruit erythritol are sugars? Now, erythritol is a sugar alcohol that isn't absorbed, but it's still a sugar. And so there's so many hidden sugars and sugar is starch is broken down into all sorts of sugars. So if you have high starch, you're also going to have sugar. So if we've got high sugar in our diets, whether we know it or not, either because we're eating whole foods that are sweeter, or that we have a packaged food diet and we don't even see the sugars in there, you're going to contribute to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Justin, what do you want someone to know about contributing factors to clogging up their livers?
Yeah, so I feel like it's a good idea for me to zoom out a little bit on how this actual detoxing takes place in the body. Because when we make references to phase 1 detoxification, phase 2 detoxification, I just want you guys to really get a good grasp on what we're talking about. Because then as we add in the genetic element, it makes more sense because some of these genes are impacting phase 1 and some of them are impacting phase 2. And we want to have a really nice balance between phase 1 detox and phase 2 detox, because in between those two phases, there's actually an intermediate phase that gets created where toxins are basically rendered more toxic in the middle phase as they were even in the first place. So, really making sure that your body's flowing and that we're supporting your body in the right area is very important for not, in fact, doubling up on the toxin load that your body has to deal with. So, I'll give you guys a bit of a rundown here first. So, the detox process actually happens in 3 coordinated phases, and it's primarily carried out by the liver. And the way that I was taught to kind of think about this from the functional genomics certification as well as my FDN certification is that it really functions like a wash cycle, right? Like in a washing machine, you're washing your clothes and it's got a cycle going on in there. So phase 1 detoxification can be looked at as like the pre-wash cycle. It's just trying to get some of that dirt off of there because dirt can be dangerous. So in this stage, liver enzymes, especially cytochrome P450 enzymes, that's the CYP family we talk about. When we say CYP1A2, CYP1B1, this is the cytochrome P450 enzymes at play. And the CYP family plays a pretty big role in phase 1 detoxification. So this phase, it begins breaking down fat-soluble toxins such as chemicals, medications, excess hormones. That's why there's a lot of those CYP enzymes in your hormone profile in the DNA 360. It begins to break down, food additives and stuff like that. And these reactions, including oxidation and reduction, they partially neutralize the toxin and start to prepare them for removal. But like I mentioned, this process can temporarily make the toxins more reactive and potentially more harmful to the body. And that's why we want the efficient progression from phase 1 to phase 2. It's very essential. Phase 1 detoxification, it relies on nutrients like B vitamins, fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin D, antioxidant vitamins like vitamin C and vitamin E, and calcium. And that's where you would utilize compounds such as silymarin, which would be like the milk thistle extract. That's what Dr. Steph mentioned. And that can all aid phase 1 detox. A lot of these can be obtained from, fruits and vegetables and spices. And I'm a big fan of relying on diet first. There's a thing called the ORAC scale, which is like a measure of the antioxidant content of different foods. And I really recommend you guys give that a look because there's a lot of weird spices like mint and stuff like that that are really high ORAC, and they can really help with this phase 1 detox. So then phase 2 detoxification would be what you consider like the main wash cycle. And this is where the body completes the transformation by conjugating the reactive toxins to specific molecules. Conjugation, if we say the word conjugation, it just means to attach it to something, right? So phase 1 is breaking the toxin down, and then phase 2 is putting it back together and attaching it to certain things, amino acids, methyl groups, that kind of thing. So this makes them fully water soluble and safe for elimination. And this phase is driven primarily by amino acids, right? So glycine, glutamine, taurine, cysteine, sulfur-containing compounds, all of those things. So by taking in foods like eggs and bone broth and fish and things like that, you're providing your body the amino acids necessary for phase 2. Amino acids, I hope you all understand by now that it's not just about muscle mass, right? Like we need them for neurotransmitter production, and we need amino acids to initiate phase 2 detox. So they're very important. Once it's rendered water soluble, so remember, we've taken it from being fat soluble, we've changed it around, it became pretty toxic in the middle. Phase 2 took over, and now we're using glutathione conjugation and things to get rid of them, methylation as well. Now we go to phase 3, and phase 3 is basically the drain and the spin cycle, right? It's the final stage. The now water-soluble toxins are eliminated from the body through bile into the digestive tract and through the kidneys into the urine. So additional elimination occurs via going to the bathroom, sweating, breathing, right? That carbon dioxide exchange I mentioned earlier. All of these things are phase 3 detoxification, and you want them flowing nice, 1, 2, 3. So if you've got, let's say, constipation, well, that's a disruption in phase 3 detox, and it's a big problem. Together, these all work as a continuous and balanced system, breaking down toxins, neutralizing them, and safely escorting them out of the body. So that is phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. This is going on in your body all the time. It's a really fascinating, elegant system that the universe has created for us.
Well, and in fact, as he's talking about that phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, 500 bodily functions touch the liver. So whether your detoxification, whether you've got hormones, whether your metabolism, inflammation, even mood is all directly related to each of these phases. So we're going to dig in because a lot of trends right now are so severe that, unlike what Justin was talking about, I do a little bit every day. I want you to think about cleaning your house. Most of us probably have a day a week or maybe a day a month where we deep clean and we're going to take 4, 5, 6 hours and we're going to get everything done. And that's all you do. But I want you to think about this. What if you just cleaned one room a day? What if you just took whatever it is, the half an hour, hour, and cleaned one room a day? And each day you did a different one. At the end of 7 days, you're done with all of your rooms and you can start over. Is it easier to do the once a month, big giant thing where you have to take the whole day, or is it easier to bake it into the bite-sized pieces? We're going to show you different things based on your DNA, and you can decide which one works better for you. So a lot of times, high dose herbs, rapid elimination, extreme fasting can throw you into a lot of distress, dis-ease, where you feel tired, you feel fatigued, you feel nauseous, you feel like, oh, I just can't get through this. That means that you are struggling and that we need to maybe slow that down a little because there's been a toxin that's built up and now we're opening it up and flushing it out, and rashes, headaches, fatigue are all determined. But your genetics can really help with that kind of a pattern. So drop a thumbs down if you've ever felt worse during a cleanse. Now, I know before some of you said that you did, but was it after the cleanse, before the cleanse? If you were during the cleanse and you felt worse, we're going to talk about that. Go ahead and do a thumbs down if you know how to do that. If not, there you, oh, Teresa did it. Well done. Great job. Okay, so what we want to first talk about, and yeah, there you go. Look at all you guys. You guys are so sharp. um, a lot of times, somebody who's using over-the-counter non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, even though they're lowering their inflammation, they may be clogging one of their detox pathways. Or an over-the-counter cleanser product for liver cleansing, maybe, a strict dandelion root or silymarin or a combination of vitamins and stuff, but it's kind of generic, can flare up other symptoms. Justin, do you want to go into kind of a simple day-to-day detox or simple ideas for day-to-day cleansing that you incorporate in your regimen?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I do, and I know that, we've done full webinars about this. There's a big difference between daily eating in a condensed window and doing a quarterly, really long fast. I think that proper fasting is definitely a strategy that can be useful. But I think that if you generally don't treat your body very well and you want to just hit a reset button by doing like a big long fast, it's too extreme. Your body's not even ready for that. You're not giving your body any amino acids, which I just said you need for phase 2 detoxification. So one of the easiest strategies that I follow for just that daily clearance is just eating in a condensed window. It looks different throughout the year, but if I can push my breakfast back and eat in, let's say, an 8-hour window, that gives my whole microbiome a chance to have a break from the information I piled in yesterday, being the food. It allows my liver to have a second to actually create the bile necessary for enterohepatic circulation. Bile is really important because that's part of how your body detoxifies, right? There's this relationship between your liver and your gallbladder. It's called the hepatic portal system, and your liver basically makes the bile and it sends it to the gallbladder. The gallbladder doesn't make it. It's just like an intelligent little storage unit for the bile. And when you take in some fatty acids, some things that need bile for digestion, it releases it so that that can take place. So when I just condense my eating window a little bit, that gives me that daily little reset button. It's not a massive reset button. It's just a small stacking of that win. So that's a really easy strategy. And by the way, in that window, I'm making sure that I have antioxidants with each and every meal, dietary antioxidants with that ORAC scale that I mentioned earlier. And when I'm not eating, so before the window has actually started, I'm a really big fan of just hydration with minerals. I think minerals are a really big part of this. Your body actually needs them to initiate detoxification. So I use a mixture of different sea salts. I'm a big fan of magnesium. I'm a big fan of using just various, like, really dense mineral sources like shilajit and fulvic acid, humic acid. These things actually have gut detoxification properties. And also, you need these things to initiate that transition of phase 1 to phase 2 detox. So, just by simply orchestrating your diet in such a way that you're not taking in toxins, you're taking in antioxidants, and then you're doing it in a window so that your body has that break every day. I think that's one of your best baseline strategies if your body can handle it. That is. What about you? I'm sure you got a million go-tos here.
Well, no, I love what you said. I'm just going to add on to them. So, like you, I do intermittent fasting. And so I'm going to recommend to everyone, if they don't understand the value of a shortened eating window that allows your body, your GI system to rest, then that's going to be the number one thing. Most of us eat so frequently, so often, that the body has no time to go into rest, relax, detox on its own. So I do 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of eating. I eat early in the day, so kind of mid-morning and early afternoon, and then we don't eat afternoon or dinner. That's the first thing. Hydration. Are you aware the body only needs two things, carbon and water? Carbon is all the foods that we're eating, and water. So the quality of your water is critically important. Most RO or demineralized water, like distilled water, actually pulls minerals. It can pull toxins, but it can pull minerals out of your body. And that can actually set you up for a detox reaction. I like structured mineral waters, and the structure comes from minerals. So when you look at the basis, if you're going to start bottom line, you're going to look at clean foods, clean water, mineral rich. Those will begin detoxifications. Like you, I use Celtic sea salts, I use non-iodized salts, I use mineral replacements, because all of those really benefit. And that allows your body to optimize. Now, I saw a question earlier. Well, don't we have to do our organs in order? We have to start with gut, and then we can go to liver, and then kidney, and then whatever. In an ideal world, if your gut's out of whack, you start with your gut. That's a great idea, because if you're doing your liver, but your gut's still out of whack, it'll keep coming back to the gut. A lot of people don't know their gut's out of whack. And unfortunately, gut issues can take weeks, months, or on. Tonight about liver, there are simple ways to clean up the liver, like, again, even the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs are disrupting your bowel flora, and they're disrupting your liver. So if you've heard about like Tylenol, Tylenol will chew on the liver if it doesn't have something to chew on. If you're going to take Tylenol, you need to eat with something with it so that it's working on processing that food and not chewing on your liver. Alternatives to taking a Tylenol or an ibuprofen or an naproxen or a meloxicam or a celecoxib would be omega-3s. Particularly, I like green lip mussel oil, because green lip mussel oil has some extra fatty acids that go down the same pathways with the COX-1 and COX-2 to give tremendous anti-inflammatory relief. Plus, you're opening up your other cells. And when the cells are locked down and they can't get the toxins out, the inflammation stays in. But when we have omega-3, omega-6 balance, it's healthier. Those cells will open up, pull the polyphenols in, dump the toxins out, and overall, the body is going to do a lot better with that. So when we talk about the genetics, believe it or not, Christy, yes, Greenland muffled oil can replace NSAIDs. Seen it millions of times. So what about what the glutathione pathways say for liver detox, and for our people tonight who are going, okay, so what about my GSTM? Why do I feel nasty when I get in that glutathione pathway? Help. Let's talk glutathione and liver.
Yeah, so glutathione, of course, being a very important part of phase two detoxification. The Asian nation, as Dr. Steph said, glutathionization is absolutely a big part of that. So we look at a few different genes there, and they're really important for understanding like how your body's detox capacity works, because I've had people that have a lot of deletions in glutathione pathways, and then they try to take like big doses of glutathione or maybe do some of these more extreme detoxification methods, and their body just can't handle it. Right. So the main one I look at is called GST-T1, and that's very important. That's in your anti inflammatory reports and a little sub report called glutathionization. So GST-T1, we measure it as what's called a CNV, a copy number variation. So it's like, how many did you get from your parents? And you can have 0, 1, or 2 copies. Any less than 2 there is what we call a null. So if you have only 1 copy, one of your parents blessed you, the other one unfortunately didn't. I'm sure they blessed you in other areas, but with this one, not so much. Or if you're missing both, right? That's what we call a double null. So if you look in your reports and you have 0 copies of GSTT1, the instruction manual for how your liver is going to use glutathione to conjugate, right? Where I said conjugate it, it connects it to these toxins. It's not going to happen very well for you. So when you have a double null, interestingly, you actually can't use glutathione, like big doses of it, as an actual intervention, because if you take in high amounts of a substrate that you're missing the instruction manual for what to do with, well, it's going to instead conjugate to something else. It's going to bind to something else instead of toxins. Most likely, what it's going to do is it's going to bind to minerals instead, and you're going to actually end up depleting your body of a lot of these mineral reserves and causing dehydration and other cellular issues. So for those people, right, if you do have that double null, I would recommend relying on the precursors of glutathione instead of glutathione in and of itself. Even a great like liposomal glutathione, which I think is a fantastic ingredient if it's right for you, you still don't want to do it if you've got that double null. Instead, you would want to do the N-acetylcysteines of the world, and selenium and alpha lipoic acid, glycine, glutamine. I mean, the things that build glutathione, because then you're reinforcing the pathway without overloading it with the ingredient itself.
So let's summarize that, because that was great information. So a lot of you have a double null or double zero, and you're like, oh, shoot, what next? What it means is don't take glutathione directly, because you can't utilize it. You've got, if you look at it making a cake, you don't get your cupcake. You don't get to have your cupcake, run away. You got to have all the ingredients, and we have to put it together so your body can do it gently enough that you don't go into a detox reaction. N-acetylcysteine is NAC, NAC. You've probably seen that. Alpha lipoic acid, ALA, selenium. So if you're looking at some of these, and remember, guys, there will be a recording of this, and you will be able to go back and take notes and write down things, so don't worry. Those precursors are much gentler. You will get the maximum benefit from the body assembling it itself, and you won't have to worry as much about the breakdown mode. Now, I can also tell you, if this overwhelms you, which it is, just let it fall over you. Whatever you can pick up, you pick up. You go back, you watch it again. We also have our DNA Way app. You can go in and check. Am I a double negative? Do I have 2 or 3? Can I process well? Can I not? We're going to talk about another glutathione gene in just a second. But remember that we're always available, and they're going to put in the chat for you to look at. You could always write a question in, and we have customer service that can reach back out to you, help point you in the right direction, and or set you up with a practitioner to go through and explain things directly about what yours are going through. So we talked about the GSTT1. Let's talk about GSTM1. Justin?
Yeah, another very important one, and this is one that yours truly actually has 0 copies of. So I myself have the double null of the GST-M1, and where the GST-T1 is more concentrated in the liver, this one is going to be more concentrated in the gut microbiome. So we also measure this as a copy number variation. You can have 0, 1, or 2 copies. This one has a bit more of a nuance to it, where GST-T1 is a little more straightforward. The more copies you have, like 2, the better. 1 is a little bit worse. 0 is a little bit worse. With GST-M1, it's actually weird. So the 0 copies like I have sucks, right? Because you're not detoxing well. Your body just doesn't have that line of defense at the level of the gut. But if you have 2 copies now of GST-M1, it represents an over-aggressive glutathione profile. The reason why is because, unfortunately, we know what we've done to the food supply, and we also know that the microbiome is very, very complex, and it's directly related to your immune system as well. Most of your immune system exists in that gut microbiome. So an over-aggressive now glutathione profile means that when your body takes in something from a dietary pathway that your body recognizes as an enemy, or it says, what is that? Like, I'm not sure I like that. It's going to kick on an immune response. So what we found clinically is that 2 copies of GSTM1 does represent a possible predisposition for that wearing away of the gut wall and the gut lining because of the immune reaction being kicked on over and over again, right? We find a lot of food sensitivities. We find the weakening of the mucosal barrier. And if that mucosal barrier, which is necessarily thin, happens to end up with an injury, we call it mucosal injury, then that is effectively what they call leaky gut. And that is the beginning of any number of autoimmune issues. Right. So we actually want the 1. The 1 is the ideal format of GSTM1. Funny enough, it's that middle category. Your body's going to be able to detox, but it's not going to do it so aggressively that it kicks off immune reactions left and right. If you have 2 or 0, I definitely recommend prioritizing gut and gut detoxification. I think that's one of your best bets from a longevity perspective. I'm reminded of what it's earlier when people were talking about the different organs and how to sort of prioritize them. A lot of people say that disease begins in the gut. I'm not really of that opinion, but I think it absolutely circles back to it. I think it's more of a cascade where it's like when you have a lot of stress, and that can be oxidative stress, GI pathogens, emotional stress, that kicks off cortisol. The cortisol will lower your DHEA, and now you're in a catabolic state. The catabolic state will impact your gut because it suppresses certain things like secretory IgA. And those are like the main defenders at the level of the gut. Once that kicks off, well, now the gut problem becomes an immune problem because that's where most of your immune system lives. So it started with stress impacted hormones, the gut, the immune system. And now here we are. So the body is unbelievable and holistic, and really reinforcing genetically weak areas via these different cleansing strategies can really go a long way. The gut is always going to be a big part of our conversations with detox because that's where a lot of our toxin intake is, folks. Unfortunately, we messed up the food supply.
So you brought up a couple really good points. If you don't know if your gut is messed up, you can always do a DNA-3 gut. There are several different gut companies that will do profiles, and they'll show you, is your zonulin and occludin leaking through? Do you have leaky gut? They'll show you, do you have candidal overgrowth? Do you have communal bacteria balances? You know, a hot topic right now is akkermansia, and everybody's out there jamming akkermansia because that has the natural GLP-1, and I can lose weight and I can do. However, akkermansia should only be about 5% of your total gut tissue because akkermansia melts the mucus. It'll go in and gobble the mucus up, and it can actually destroy the lining of your gut. So if you're doing massive akkermansia, pull back, baby, because you're going to actually throw yourself into another problem. And I think that's one of the biggest things about liver detox or any kind of a detox is, you know, gentle phase 1, phase 2, needing antioxidants and not necessarily aggressive herbs. Those with deletions of the glutathione genes are going to feel more toxic and more tired. So cleaning up your diet, doing a little fasting, using the components of the ALA and the NAC and the selenium and healing foods. Now, I'm a real natural mama. Even though I am classically trained as a pharmacist, I've run a wellness center for 25 years. And what I have found is I like going to the natural biological system first. So a little apple cider vinegar does a great job for starting to detox. I make fire cider, which is garlic and onion and orange and thyme and turmeric and ginger. And I'll put my homemade apple cider vinegar in there and I let it cultivate for a month or two. And then I pull that mixture off, that fire cider off. All of those are stimulatory for gallbladder and liver and bowel to all start going, oh, what is all this? And it takes all those components and starts flushing. And when you're flushing, then I actually take all the components from inside that fire cider and grind it into a relish. I'll use that as part of a salad dressing that I use. I'll use it as a relish next to some savory meat. Maybe my husband and I are having pork chops, and we'll put that relish on the side. All of those are natural ways to get things moving. You can always, you can also look at teas. There are gentle liver detox teas. You can do dandelion root tea. You can do ginger teas. So some of these gentle herbs may be a simpler way to start. Your goal is not start today, be done tomorrow. The goal is let's start detoxifying by pulling back the crap that we're putting in and putting great things in that help generate all of these systems to start really working. And let's talk a little bit about the SOD gene, because that's a major antioxidant defense that really we need to look at. And I love all you natural mamas out there that are going, whoa, fire cider recipes. Just Google fire cider recipe and you'll pull them up. And you know what? Fire cider is so easy to make, and you can start making it now. It is the best flu defense and COVID defense and all these viruses that we get in the winter. It will keep your immune system detoxifying. You might sweat a little, you might perspire a little. Remember, those Asian nations are good, but it fires up your immune system and it cleans the gut as well as cleans the liver as well as cleans the kidneys. But when we're in low SOD production, that inflammation can go up. Let's talk about SOD.
SOD is very, very important. And this is really a mitochondrial detoxification pathway. So, way back at the beginning of the call, I mentioned that phase one detoxification involves things like reduction and oxidation, right? So, this lends really nicely into the glutathione pathways, and really understanding how that balance looks for you is very important. So, the SOD2 gene, we look at it in your antioxidation reports there within the anti-inflammatory reports. It's basically a HEPA filter that exists in the mitochondria to clear reactive oxygen species. Every moment that we live, our mitochondria are creating the ATP necessary for all things, right? So your brain, your muscles, your organs, all of these things rely on ATP to function. Your mitochondria are sitting there and creating all that ATP that we need. That's why there's different mitochondrial densities to different cells that need the most energy. Like your brain is filled with mitochondria because the energy requirements of those cells are very, very high. So every moment that we're making the ATP, we're making a byproduct of the ATP. Natural cellular metabolism means that your body creates toxins, being reactive oxygen species, free radicals. So SOD2 is what's in place to clear away those free radicals. And depending on the speed of that enzyme, you may do it better or worse than somebody else. Yours truly does a horrific job at this. I have the slowest possible SOD2 enzyme, and I'm also an athlete. right? So the more you work out, there can be a bit of a double-edged sword there if you don't clear these very well, because the more energy that you create so that you can hit the weights and run and do whatever you like to do, you're creating a lot of these free radicals as well. So if you've got the slowest SOD2, it means that this represents a disruption in that phase one detoxification, and you're going to want to make sure that you're prioritizing some strategies there. So, the fire relish, that sounds like a fantastic strategy if you have slow SOD2. I'm a big fan of things like, infrared sauna. Hydrogen water is great for getting that NRF2 pathway kicked off. I actually use something called carbon 60 as well, which is a really fascinating peptide that directly operates on this SOD2 pathway, right? So if you have pretty poor SOD2 function, this is something that's going to age your body quite a bit quicker, because you're just accelerating the kind of gumming up of the mitochondria with free radicals. Carbon 60 directly donates and creates that SOD2 pathway to be more efficient. So that's something that I use pretty regularly. It's a very, very strong antioxidant. And then you do that in combination with getting the right amount of amino acids and things that kick off the phase two detox. Then you sweat and you go to the bathroom and all these things. And now we've got phase one, phase two, and phase three as well. The so the old way that we read these genes, there is a bit of a transitionary period going on right now with the alleles. But in the comments, I just saw TT was the SOD2 genotype that you have. That's the same one as me. So unfortunately, that's going to be the slowest genotype. CT would be the middle genotype, and CC is the fastest clearance there. So if you have the older reports, the interpretation doesn't change, but TT genotype is going to be the slowest there. And I highly recommend some reinforcement at the level of the mitochondria.
And we're going to break this down into 4 or 5 ways to detox. So I want to get through 3 more genes so you've understood the genes, and then we'll go through. So you'll be able to use this with your profile, whether you have the DNA app, whether you have your report, or whether you dig back in, and be able to identify yourself. And we'll go through those in just a minute. But right now, methylation. So we talked about glucuronidation. Let's talk about methylation. A lot of people only talk about MTHFR. Tell me why you love the DNA report, because it's not just about MTHFR.
Yeah, MTHFR has gotten so much publicity, and it is absolutely a very important enzyme in the body. However, we zoom way out on the methylation cycle because it is exactly that. It's a cycle. It goes around and around. It's happening many, many times per second in the cell. And MTHFR is actually just one step in that whole pathway. So basically, we have a relay race going on in the cells all the time, and the body is taking methyl groups, it's changing them around, and it's passing them to the next enzyme, the next runner. Your MTHFR could absolutely be suboptimal, but later in the pathway, the rest of your methylation genes could pick up the slack there, and you can still end up winning the race and getting the baton past the finish line. And that's ultimately the goal. So we get real into the weeds, and we've done a lot of webinars just about methylation because it's a very complicated pathway. But if you zoom way in on one gene, nothing in the body operates in isolation. Right? These are all cellular cascades going on in the body all the time. MTHFR has a role. It creates 5-MTHF, and then it passes it on to the next one. And they keep changing it and making it so that you have ultimately methyl groups available so your body can make neurotransmitters and hormones, etc. So it's a mistake to zoom in on one gene and not look at it as a system. I really recommend checking out our previous webinars where we've gone crazy on methylation. We've done probably, 10 of them or something like that because it's such an important topic. But yes, MTHFR is important, but not the whole story.
And the whole thing about all of the MTHs is it supports the glutathione recycling. So especially if you don't make glutathione, or if you have problems with that, then you're going to use what's already available. It also, when you have weak methylation, you have poor detox, so you have more toxins that build up, and you get hormone congestion. So methylation is important. Just like we talked about earlier, the gut barrier, we have a special gene, the FUT, the FUT2, which increases gut permeability. Well, that can increase your toxin loads and therefore your liver load. So we've got to be careful about checking, okay, do I do my glutathione? Does my methylation get through? Am I predisposed for, intestinal permeability? And then we have our APOE. Do you want to go into fat metabolism?
Yeah, so APOE is really interesting, and it's been kind of, in my opinion, mislabeled a little bit, right, as being the Alzheimer's gene. I don't like it when people say this is the X gene, right? Because again, nothing operates in isolation in the body. There's a lot of factors with things like dementia and Alzheimer's, but ApoE is very important for how your body takes fats, like cholesterol, and uses them to address inflammation in the body because it's very sticky. It's like a Vaseline, and it's actually there to help you heal inflammation in the body. But if you have a 4 allele in the ApoE gene, it represents kind of a disruption in that cycle where it's not being properly released from the liver and then returned to the liver after addressing the inflammation. So if you have a 4 allele, especially, then high saturated fat diets are not necessarily in your interest unless it's for a shorter period of time. But your body doesn't process the cholesterol as well, and that can be one of those sources of inflammation. So it can cause a metabolic issue there. So I also, by the way, this makes it sound like my genes are just terrible, but I do
Mine
have
are.
4 allele as well.
Mine
And
are.
healthy, right? So we know what to do about it. But yeah, the 4 allele can be problematic with regard to dietary cholesterol, inflammation, and detoxification as well. All of that matters with ApoE. So if you have a 3-4, a 4-4, be aware of that as well in your genes.
Yeah. So I told you we were going to go through 5 different types or 4 different types of safe liver support. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through each one of those. If you've got a pen and paper, you're going to want to write now because this is going to be a time that you're going to go back and really want this information. And then we're going to jump into our Q&A and start going through some of your specific questions. So the type 1 liver detox are your slow detoxifier. These are for those of you that have glutathione deletions and you have the low SOD variants. What do you avoid? Fasting for long periods of time, alcohol detox kits, and high dose herbal cleanses. You're not going to be able to process because you don't have those breakdown intermediate things that can grab on. Gentle detoxes, antioxidants, and precursors. We've already talked about that 2 or 3 times, but a slow detoxifier with deletions, low and slow, is your best friend. So if we're going to go to number 2, the fast phase 1, but slow phase 2. So we talked about the CYP genes and how a lot of those CYP genes we hear about all the time, like with hormones, but we have the weak glutathione or weak MTHFR. Bad cleansing options for you would be don't do coffee enemas, don't do aggressive juicing. I don't believe in aggressive juicing anyway, because that you're going to get fatty liver because you're going to pull away all the fiber and all that fructose is going to go to the liver, and too much phase 1 stimulation. So what are you going to do? Gentle and easy. We need NAC. We need liver antioxidants. We need good protein support and good methylation support. And those methylation support can be with the B vitamins or methylated Bs, or so literally that is for a slow phase 1 or a fast phase 1 and a slow phase 2. Justin, do you have anything else you want to add to that for the CYP or a weak GST MTHFR?
Yeah, so there's another component there to what you said. I just want to kind of piggyback off of over aggressive phase 1 strategies as far as like taking in really high dose antioxidants. Now, bear in mind, dietary antioxidants and herbs are a little bit safer approach, but a lot of people will also add in a lot of supplemental antioxidants. And what I mentioned before, this idea of reduction and oxidation, it's very important to understand that this is a balancing act and your cells need homeostasis in there. You can overdo it with dietary antioxidants. You don't want to overdo that. If you take in like high doses of vitamin C, high doses of vitamin E, you can actually overwhelm that antioxidation pathway and end up doing too much antioxidative effect. And you actually want to balance between pro and antioxidative effect in the body. So be a little bit careful when it comes to these supplemental antioxidants. Don't just assume that more is better, because this is about homeostasis in the body. It's a fundamental homeostatic control that's happening in the body, and you want to balance it out. You don't need zero free radicals, right? There's a reason why there's these hormetic stressors and things that take place in the body, but you want to balance it out nicely, the different phases. So don't overdo that either. It's actually a mistake, even though on paper it sounds like a really good call.
Yep. So the type 3 we have is a hormone overloaded type. That's where your CYP genes, like your CYP19A1 or your CYP1B1, or even some of your COMP isn't working effectively. We're going to look at needing to do some extra detoxification. Brussels sprouts, sulforaphanes, cruciferous vegetables. You can go to DIM. Women, be very careful with DIM. DIM go a little bit goes a long way. You may recall that last year I got back my breast 360 and I was clinically significant. I was very high. I went on a massive dose of DIM and threw myself completely in the opposite direction. So just like we're talking about liver detox, I went into a massive hormone detox. I went into massive gut detox, and I threw myself exactly the other way. And it's like less is the more. The body likes gentle. So be gentle on yourself. Okay, I'm here. I don't want to be here. How can I gently start pushing? So we don't want to do too much aggressiveness with that. Low sugar, anti-inflammatory foods. Now, I'm very pro animal foods. However, as long as you're low carb, if you feel better with plant-based foods, you've got to do low carb ones, meaning not the big bags of starch like a baked potato. Yes, you can do, raw white potato, or you can take potatoes or rice that you've cooked and then you chill them and create a resistant starch. But you've got to be real careful with that. And I really think that learning about how your body gets impacted, your blood sugars, because remember what we say, it's not the glucose, it's the insulin. And if you're not measuring your insulin, and I will tell you 99% of providers are not measuring insulin. So we can go into insulin for a minute. We're measuring blood glucose, and people go, oh, well, I'm an 89, or I'm a 92, or I'm 100. But that is a result of where your body is stabilizing. Your insulin is what is controlling that. Insulin should be between 1 and 5. You can ask for a free insulin. There's plenty of websites you can go on and order yourself. It used to cost $1 million to do an insulin blood test. It's now less than 50 bucks. So go order yourself an insulin. If you're 1 to 5, you've got a big bodyguard that's protecting. And every time you have food comes in and your insulin goes to shoot up, it gobbles it quickly. You remain insulin sensitive, and it puts it where it belongs. If you've got 6 or 18 or 25, you got a bunch of Boy Scouts running around. Do you want to be protected in a dark alley by 25 Boy Scouts, or do you want one good bodyguard? Well, your insulin is the same way. Insulin is the key, and it's the thing that no one's talking about. It is a storage hormone. The liver loves to store. When your blood sugar shoots up, and the insulin says, go grab that. It grabs it, converts it to fat, and tucks it in your liver. If there's one thing you do for liver detox, track your diet for a week and look at all the hidden sugars, look at all the hidden starches, look at the glycemic loads, and you'll see, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Okay, I'm eating tacos. Well, you've got a flour tortilla or a corn tortilla. They're both going to spike your insulin. You've got a bunch of onions. Now, I eat onions, but onions have a high glycemic index. They can spike your sugar. I'm drinking sweet tea, or I'm drinking a Diet Coke. You think that the Diet Coke isn't packing onto your liver? It is, because it spikes your insulin, and the diet sweeteners are eating your brain. So there's a lot of triggers that you've not been aware of. All juices that you've been blending, you break down all of the fiber, and so it becomes an instant skyrocket of fructose. Fructose goes right into liver, fatty liver. So be very, very careful at that diet and what you're putting in, and keeping that blood sugar real stable so you can stabilize your insulin. And that goes really to our last one, the carb sensitive livers. Carb timings is critical, sugar moderation, and liver directed support with the supplements that we kind of already talked about. And so I think it's really exciting to know that you have way more control than a lot of your providers will tell you. I see so many times where people come to the clinic and say, my doctor says I've got fatty liver disease. Don't worry about it. We'll just monitor it in 6 months. No, what are we doing about it today? You don't want to get cirrhosis. You don't want to get liver cancer. You don't want to, continue to spike. So think low glycemic index, low carb when you're talking fatty liver disease. Justin, where would you take it from there?
I would say that beyond that, blood glucose management is something that you can also do via some of the other ingredients that you would take in, right? So, like apple cider vinegar, like you mentioned earlier, is fantastic for that. Ceylon cinnamon is great. Berberine is great. You better be resistance training if you're trying to get your blood sugar under control. And then there's just ingredients that I'm a big fan of for supporting, like bioflow and these different things, like TUDCA. Um, all the things that we mentioned before. As far as the gut, I'm also a fan of structured silver. I think that's a very valuable ingredient. These things that have these fantastic just detoxification properties that are not harsh on the body, that's where I would go towards. But I agree with absolutely everything you just said too. Starches, resistant starch is fantastic. Carb cycling is fantastic. There's a lot of different ways to incorporate starches so that they don't really mess up your metabolism, and know your genes there as well, because we do have insulin genes and starch metabolism genes that you should also be aware of.
So we're going to jump into the Q&A. Two things that I see that I want to answer. Heidi, bananas, mango, and pineapple are all some of the highest glycemic index fruits. Those would not be ones that I would be choosing for you. Yes, there's fiber in there, but you're doing huge insulin spike. And Christina, I'm sorry that your doctor said wait till you get cirrhosis and then we'll start monitoring. No, baby, we're not going there. That was the same as when they said about my son, well, let's just wait until his gut breaks down. Keep feeding him gluten. We're not sure if he's a celiac. Let's destroy his gut and then we'll rebuild it. I opted the opposite. I said, let's pretend he has celiac and let's go there now. And the next time we had him tested, there was nothing. So you can choose to be proactive or reactive. We don't want you to wait until you have a problem. We want to go, I'm at that pre-diabetes. I'm at that pre-metabolic syndrome. I'm at that pre-non-steroidal or uh, non-alcoholic fatty liver. Let's reverse it by getting that cleaned up. And we're going to jump into the Q&A. Now, I will apologize in advance. I have to be out of here in about 10 minutes. And so we're going to go through anything that I need to answer. And then Justin's here. And I see one of our fearless leaders, Dr. Tracy's here too, if we need somebody. So Judy says, I have no gallbladder since 2004. I recently had a liver scan, discovered I have fatty liver. I started taking TUDCA, ox bile, milk thistle. Yes, yes, and yes. My DNA reports I don't have good detox pathways. I do not methylate. Is there a detox product that can reinforce my liver, or am I just adding the right? So Justin, I don't know if you want to add anything to this. I love TUDCA. I love that you're doing ox bile because you took your gallbladder out. And hopefully, what we've already talked about, the different types that you already have gotten those from what we've talked about today, unless you want to say something else, Justin.
I'll just quickly say that I use TUDCA. TUDCA is, in fact, a bile salt. And when we have parts removed, that's going to represent a void that you always have to reinforce. And I think you're taking the right approach. Ox bile is fantastic. So is TUDCA. So is the silymarin in the milk thistle. So you're off to a great start with that one.
Great. Lorna says, I'm an undermethylator. What's the best way for me to detox?
I would watch all of our webinars on methylation specifically because there's no blanket recommendation with that one. Some people need the reinforcement of methyl groups with the type of B vitamins that they take, and some people don't, because you can actually overmethylate if you're not careful, and you can end up with anxiety and different things. So my honest answer to you is to get a coaching session, because then we can go through all of the cascade. There's several genes in that methylation report, and I never recommend like just blanketly taking like a B complex. I get a little bit more specified there. But get as much value out of our methylation webinars as you possibly can. And if it's still confusing, by all means, I'm here. Dr. Steph is here, and we can always set up a session.
We'd love to do that. So I did say that there were 5 types. There were really only 4 types. There was the slow detoxifier, the fast phase 1, slow detoxer 2, the hormone overload, and the 4th one is the carb sensitive. There was a question of which part of my DNA has the detox. They're spread out throughout the DNA profile, but you'll want to look at the glutathione, the comp, the methylation. Since it goes through all the different pathways, they'll be spread out throughout your report. All right. Can you speak to different detox strategies for missing a detox genes that gives instruction for the glutathione and suboptimal toxins in the air? I think we kind of have done that already. Then suboptimal detox genes filtering toxins through the gut. Also, how does anyone compensate for fast stage 1 and slow stage 2? I think we've gone through a lot of that. Justin, you want to add anything there?
I would recommend just rewatching the webinar and
Yeah.
taking notes, just because we already went as detailed as we possibly could. And I'm aware that Dr. Steph has a bit of a time restraint here, but yeah, we did cover that decently. So she probably entered that question in prior to us actually giving those answers, but they are all in here. And this, by the way, gets re-uploaded on YouTube as well. So we have just the DNA Company YouTube channel. Take notes, get the best possible value out of it that you can.
Here's a great one. Christina, what does it mean if you feel weird or exhausted when you take glutathione?
Yes, so that would be what we mentioned before, very likely, right? In that, like I said, if it doesn't bind to the toxins, it's going to find something else to bind to. And we've actually had circumstances at the DNA Company where people have ended up bedridden because their practitioner, well-intentioned practitioner, but they just didn't know the genes, put them on like a big glutathione drip or, liposomal glutathione. It binds to minerals and you end up really depleted there. The moment that your minerals are depleted, your energy is going to go. I mean, that's like our cells are little sacks of salt water. And so if you deplete the minerals, now it's just water in there. And now we don't have what we need for electrical conductivity in the mitochondria. And you're going to end up with fatigue, brain fog, muscle cramps. Those kinds of things are all possibilities there. So again, the precursors themselves, instead of the glutathione, is what I would rely on.
Yep. So I've heard that intermittent fasting is not good for women and that fasting 14 hours really recommended for everyone, all genders, all genetics. You can find anyone to support any position you want it to. I say you have a PhD in Christina. Christina, you need to try it. Try, if you're not doing any fasting, try a 12 hours. So you ate dinner at 6 and you're up at 6. How do you feel? Do you wake up hungry? Are you ravenous when you wake up? Or you're like, I could do or not do? Can you wait a half an hour? Can you wait an hour? Can you have warm water with lemon? How do you do? If you're getting shaky, if you're monitoring your blood sugar and you see that you're not doing well, then you may not be ready. Is your gut strong enough? Is your liver strong enough? I will tell you personally that fasting has been an integral part of staying healthy. I had cancer at 21. I had another cancer scare at 60, but it was because of that chronic inflammation. We as North Americans are overfed and undernourished. Well, I'm still slender, but I still was leaning toward inflammatory pathways because I wasn't giving myself the time to burn it off. Just like we can cook a meal and then it has to sit and rest for 5, 10, 20 minutes before you serve it. The same type of rest is what your gut needs, what your organ needs to detoxify. So I would recommend you try it and see how you feel. And there's some great books. There's Fast Like a Girl by Dr. Mindy Peltz. I think that's another one that would be really a good idea. Sheila wants to know, Sheila is actually a big fan of yours, Justin. Sheila wants to know what's the name brand of the sauna that you're using so that she can know about that, because sauna is another great way. Asian Nation, perspiration, detoxification, another great
Absolutely.
way to detoxify.
I'm a very big sauna fan. I love the sauna, especially. So I'm in Canada and it's January. So like the ability to actually be warm, at a moment's notice is fantastic. This one is called Clear Light, and it's actually an American company, but I lucked out that they happen to have a warehouse in Ontario. And it's got like all kinds of cool add-ons to it. It's got full body red light therapy that's in there as well. It's got something called chromotherapy. There's add-ons like halo therapy, which is like a salt therapy that you can do. So it turns it into like a salt cave when you're in there. Yeah, I love it. Clear Light saunas, I'm a big fan, but it doesn't have to be them. It's just any brand that is really low EMF and doesn't have a lot of those kinds of emissions, I'm a big fan of. And I favor infrared over wet saunas personally, just based on how it actually detoxes the cells. And Dr. Steady has joined us to kill it with the rest of these questions.
She has. I'm going to answer a couple green lip muscle oil and then I'm going to shoot out. So, um, what exactly is green lip muscle oil? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. Green lip mussels from New Zealand, the beautiful pristine waters of New Zealand, have an extra omega-3 fatty acid in them. And so it works really well and works competitively well to over-the-counter non-steroidals or even prescription prescriptals. There are multiple brands out there. I'm going to tell you an insider secret. They're almost all purchased from the same green lip muscle buyers, so you don't really need to worry about the brands. And yes, it is a type of omega-3. So you can put in green lip muscle oil and be pretty safe as long as it comes from New Zealand. And Susan asks, how much green lip muscle oil do you use? She's taking 200 milligrams to stop inflammation. What I'll tell you is you will know when you stop hurting. If you need to take two, take two. If you need to take four, take four. If you need to take six. I have not found an upper limit of green lip muscle oil that has been detrimental to any of my clients. I've given them as early as a 1-month-old who couldn't poop and as old as a 95-year-old who had joint issues. And in both cases, things were able to remediate. So Susan also said, what brands do you recommend? There's multiple brands. Like I said, behind the scenes, they're all from the same place. And I presently take a 369 omega. Since my oat test revealed I have a deficiency of 6 and 9. Yeah, your oat test did, but look at your omega-3, omega-6 ratio. I'm more concerned about your ratio than the deficiency of omega-6 because there is plentiful omega-6 out there. And Dr. Steady, you may want to address that if you have some input on that. And I'm going to say thank you all for being here. Thank you for being concerned about your liver. You need your liver, and your liver loves you. And the biggest thing you can do, get rid of that fructose, and you can heal. And get some more liver tests. You can do, if you do a month or even two, 60 to 90 days, you can get in and you can start to see reversals there. And so treat your liver well, and your liver will treat you well. And I look forward to seeing you all soon. Take care. God bless. Thanks for having me today.
Bye-bye. Dr. Tracy, are you prepared to answer some of these bad boys?
I am, but because I joined late, I cannot mark them or see them. I have to look at them on a little screen. So I would love it if you could read them because even though I have bifocals, the print is kind of small on my phone.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'll take this first one because it's one that I was kind of referencing before. Like I mentioned, we had an older way of looking at genes and a newer way of looking at genes. They're both the same interpretation, but now it's just that some of the little letters have changed. So when I was talking about SOD2 and GPX, I was just saying that there's different reads, and the current read is A's and G's, and the previous read was C's and T's. So I was talking about the T allele as being suboptimal, and Sheila is saying that she has SOD2AG and she has GPXAA. So the GPX, the AA is in fact the slower form, right? So that can be a bit problematic with regard to free radicals. And the SOD2, the AG, is kind of in the middle, but I would still consider it slightly suboptimal free radical clearance. So between the two, Sheila, I would say that, yeah, phase one detoxification at the level of the mitochondria is an area where you're going to want to do some work with the strategies that I mentioned earlier, right? So dietary antioxidants, carbon 60, hydrogen. I mean, there's a lot of little ways that we can get in there with that. But overall, I would consider you to have a similar profile to Coach Justin and not being so optimal there. Okay, so I will read out this next one. Jenny has a question. 23andMe test says I have a genetic predisposition to fatty liver disease. Liver detox was recommended to me 3 to 4 per year, and it definitely seems to help. Feels terrible while doing it, though. However, I want to understand more about this predisposition and what the best long-term way to manage my optimum health is. I have a quick comment on that, Dr. Steady, and then I'll pass the mic over to you. So one of the differences between our test and 23andMe is that they do primarily the SNP testing, right? Which there's a lot of great info you can get from SNPs, but some of the more important genes that we touched on tonight, being the glutathione genes, they're actually measured as copy number variations and not SNPs, right? So the information that you get from the DNA 360 includes these CNVs, and that's a really important thing when it comes to liver health because glutathione is such an overriding part of this phase 2 detox that we talked about tonight. And understanding that if you have a null there, a double null, or even just a single null, that's going to really impact how well you can respond to some of these detox strategies, especially the more aggressive ones. So you said that while you're on the cleanse, you don't feel very good. To me, that may represent that you may have some deletions there and you're actually depleting some of your mineral reserves, which is going to not feel so good during the cleanse. Later, you'll have had an opportunity to replenish some of your minerals. So I would say that may be part of that whole thing. Do you have any opinions on that, Dr. Steady, as far as like doing 3 to 4 times a year detoxes and just feeling like crap during it, but feeling okay after?
I agree with you, Justin, that that probably means there's something going on with one of the detox pathways that's making your body not feel great. Sometimes I think that what we used to think were like a healing crisis was actually an inability to have all of the phases of detoxification up and running, right? And so really knowing the genetics for that. And unfortunately, I don't know what the 23andMe result specifically were or what the kinds of liver detoxes are that this person is doing. The fact that you feel better afterward means that there's something that needs to happen there, right? But I just wonder if there's other support that you could do that would mean that you wouldn't have to feel so terrible during it, and it might actually be more effective. So, as Justin said, some of our testing is very specific to that, and I'm actually going to kind of weave this a little bit into a different question that I saw, very small, which was a question about detoxing organs when the gut is, how did she put it? Whether your gut is not functioning well, right? So I would say that knowing what's going on in your gut, knowing whether or not you have genes that might make it more permeable so that things can kind of end up back in the bloodstream. Because here's what you don't want to do is do a liver cleanse and then have things either not pass through quickly and easily because you have constipation or something like that, or you have your gut is more permeable. That's not great either. So I think it's part of this whole health picture that I'm sure, even though I wasn't here for the whole webinar because I was with a patient, I'm sure that Justin and Dr. Steph both talked about the whole body functioning together, how we really have to look at all parts of it and all of these genetics in order to know what's the right thing for the body. So I would say, pay attention to the genes that have to do with gut permeability and definitely maybe do a gut 360 test and see what's going on in there. Also knowing whether or not you have tendency towards celiac or just gluten intolerance, whether or not you're lactose intolerant. Maybe I don't know if you guys touched on that stuff, but those things directly impact what's going on in the gut. So now I'll stop and Justin can move on to the next question.
Very good answer. Very good answer. Okay, I'll tackle the next one quick. So Sheila has a question, just kind of running down some of her detoxification genes and just wants to know how to best support this profile. Sheila, I would love if you would get a session with me because then we can go a little bit deeper into the weeds here. But effectively, she has a double null for GSTT1. She's got the 2 copies of GST-M1, suboptimal GST-P1, and just a moderate profile for the SOD2 GPX pathway. She's in the middle for both of those. So Sheila, basically, you're looking at liver support, you're looking at gut support, especially from that immune system perspective, because remember, 2 copies represents that immune activation that we want to be aware of. For GST-P1, I mean, you want to have high quality air filters. I'm a big fan of breath work. I'm a big fan of salt therapy. I'm a big fan of things like cordyceps mushrooms, right? They help you to assimilate oxygen better. So there's a lot of ways that you can rehabilitate that. Make sure that you have high quality household cleaning ingredients as well. Keep those on the non-toxic end. And your mitochondrial profile is not the worst that I've seen, but I mean, some supportive therapies with sauna, fasting, etc. That's my rapid fire answer. My real answer is I hope to see you in a coaching session so we can go a little deeper. Okay, so the next question has to go to you because it's about a pretty specific health condition here. Joanna says that she has Hep B. Sorry to hear that, Joanna. Do you have any thoughts or opinions on how she can benefit that profile?
Well, once again, my answer would come down to knowing more of the picture than the diagnosis, right? The diagnosis is obviously a big deal, and we need to pay attention to that. But how it's addressed is really individual, depending on what your genes say, what the rest of your health looks like, what your preferences are for things, and how you've responded to other things in the past. So I'm sorry that I can't give a more direct answer, but once again, that's why we work with people one-on-one, is so that we can look at the whole picture of you. I can't really say without knowing more about what's going on, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and again, coaching sessions and doing these, this is why we have programs and different things. So I'm sure that we have the capacity to help you there. We got time for just a couple more here. I'm going to combine a couple of these. So Susan has a question about the green muscle oil. So Dr. Steph has left the building, as you know. But basically, Susan says that she has a shellfish allergy. So, how can she utilize the green muscle oil? I would say that this kind of combines with another question about fatty 15. So Jen has a question just asking generally, what do we think of the fatty 15 supplement? And Susan, I think that fatty 15 may be a good alternative to the green muscle oil because there's no shellfish derivatives in there. It's actually more of an extract of full fat dairy. To answer your question, Jen, I like fatty 15. I take fatty 15. It pretty much does a lot of the jobs that omega-3s do, but it does it about 3 times stronger. So it's something that I take once or twice a day. It's the first fatty acid to be discovered in about 70 years. So there's some pretty exciting science. It's going to benefit your brain. It's going to benefit your mitochondria and your inflammatory profile. So I'm personally a fan of it. And Susan, for yourself, I think this is a great alternative so you don't have anaphylactic issues going on there. Okay, let me see because we're coming down to the top of the webinar here. Jen has another question about GLP-1s. So she's asking, how do GLP-1s influence liver detoxification and your protocols? The first thing I would say here, Jen, is that Dr. Laura and I did a whole webinar just about GLP-1s, and we went pretty deep into different people, different genetic profiles and things. So that's a pretty good one for you to check out. Do you have an opinion on that, Dr. Tracy?
Yeah, I think with the time that we have, looking at a webinar that's dedicated to it is probably a really good idea. So, because it really, once again, it's going to depend. And I'm sorry that that's my answer for everything, but it's not really my answer for everything, just a few things.
Yeah, and we dove into glutathione, we dove into the FUT2 gene. Those things are also very relevant because it's really how your body makes its own GLP-1s. There's influence there with FUT2. And the people that have the higher reactivity levels to these GLP-1 agonists, there's kind of a pattern with suboptimal detox and suboptimal glutathione pathways and gut issues and things. So check out that webinar and you'll get some good answers. So sorry to anybody that we weren't able to get to. There was a lot of questions tonight. We may have to do a part 2 to this one. I hope that everybody learned a thing or two. There was a lot of people here tonight and quite the topic, very relevant. Everybody wants to know how to detoxify. So maybe put it in the chat if you guys learned a little something tonight. And thank you, Dr. Tracy, for rolling up. I know that you were busy with a patient doing what we do.
My pleasure. It's always fun to be here. And I'm so excited that everyone is excited to detox and take good care of themselves. That's really, that's wonderful to see.
Absolutely. So because Dr. K is not here, it means that we don't have to dance out. But if you in the audience would like to dance out, be our guests, please. And thank you so much for showing up tonight. We're here for you. Stay tuned. We got a lot of great topics this year, and we will continue to show up so long as you guys continue to show up. So thank you very much, everybody. And Dr. Tracy, you're the best.
As are you, Justin. Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.